And I've just got one bit left, and that is going to be my whistle. And actually, oh yeah, all right. Let me, I had already done some processing on that in the earlier version. So let's create our falling sound. Hang on. Once again, make sure to mute your other tracks when you're recording unless you want to have them playing back while you're recording. Okay. Get rid of this chunk at the end. All right, there's a couple things that I might want to tweak about this. Let's listen to this. Okay. First off, listen to this really carefully, and you're going to be able to hear when somebody's whistling, you're not making sound out of 100% of the air that you're expelling, right? So if you listen carefully, you can hear that breathy overtone, right? Hear that sound? Okay. Here's a cool trick that you can do. Also, since I recorded this live, you're going to have a little bit of that fan and stuff like that. So, all right. So this is me recording the part of a whistle that I don't want. Okay? Now let me introduce you to another one of Audacity's tools. This is a filter called the noise removal filter. The way noise removal works is, and actually let's just for demonstration purposes, let's copy there. All right. So I'm going to create a copy so we can compare them. If I go to Effect, Noise Removal, step one is I have to tell it what is noise. Right? What does this room sound like? So if you're recording in a noisy room or something like that, just get a few seconds of what that room sounds like when it is quote-unquote silent, because it's never actually silent, right? Now, I will say, you will probably have mixed results with this. There are commercial tools that have arguably better noise removal tools. I've had situations where noise removal has saved my butt. I've had situations where the person comes out sounding like they're underwater. Really, what's going to kill you or not is whether or not the sounds you want to remove overlap with the sounds you want to keep. If they overlap, frequency-wise, really, Audacity can't, it's not that smart. It can't do it for you, right? But in this case, we're lucky. The sound I want to take out is pretty distinct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just this airy bit. I'm going to go to my noise removal tool. I'm going to click Get Noise Profile. All right, so it has now taken what I've highlighted and said, okay, this is noise. Now, I can switch to soloing this track, select my whistling, go to noise removal again, and I can tell it to use that profile to remove the noise. And basically I can tell it, all right, when something is identified as noise, how much do I want to reduce it by? All right, and let's try making this a little more aggressive. I actually figured out some good settings for this and wrote them down. No, I did not write them down. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, we'll wing it. Remember what I was saying about writing down recipes? It's good. All right, then how picky do you want it to be with discerning what is and is not noise? And let's just try clicking preview and see what these settings get us. Okay, I think I want to make it a little bit more sensitive. Let's see what happens if we bump the sensitivity up a bit. There we go. Like that. And so to compare, notice how the waveforms have changed radically. Okay? Now, we do have a side effect of this. Because we cut out a bunch of sound, we've now got this pretty radical difference in volume. And while I'm going to want to use the envelope tool in a bit to give this a fade, I want to control the fade. So that's going to introduce us to another tool called the compressor. The way the compressor was first explained to me, which is the best way I've heard it explained, is it makes loud things, soft things loud and loud things soft. All right, it basically equalizes the volume on here. So again, let me analyze this and pull up the plot spectrum for this, and we can see, okay, down in the 1,000 to 3,000 hertz range, we've got a lot. And then after that, it just goes away, right? So what we want to do is we want to pull some of this down and then raise it up, okay? So when I go to the compressor, and this is a little bit more advanced, but remember, if you go to the manual, that manual page, and you click on the effects menu in the screenshot and then go to the compressor, all of these will be explained, right? But you're setting your threshold, all right? The threshold is essentially what constitutes too loud, all right? Now, actually, rather than the spectrum, for this, a good way to figure out what settings I want is to look at the decibel view of this track, and this is where we get into something a little bit more advanced. Decibels are really okay. I'll speak for myself. I find decibels very confusing because I don't have formal training in this. But essentially, if you get a waveform dB, it changes to measuring things in terms of decibels. Decibels are a ratio, effectively. And so I can see that the stuff that I want to bring up, I want my cutoff to be at about the 24 range here, right, at about negative 24. Ignoring for now the lecture on audio physics that would be required to really get into what negative 60 means, we can still look at it and see, okay, negative 60, negative 24 is about where the stuff that I want to bump up starts. All right? So, no, I am clicking on the triangle here. Yeah. I'm going to go to the compressor. That is not the compressor. I'm going to go to the compressor. And see, it saved the settings from when I did this earlier when I was practicing. So we set our threshold at negative 24. All right. The noise floor is at what point do we consider something background noise? So basically what we're going to do is anything above the threshold is going to be brought down by this ratio. We're going to bring it down by a factor of 4 to 1. All right. Anything below the noise floor, we're basically just going to effectively silence. All right, we're going to say this is noise we don't want. We're just going to get rid of it. All right. So the idea is we're going to take the stuff that's too loud being defined by the threshold, and bring it down. Then, see this checkbox here, make up gain? After it's brought this loud part down, it's going to amplify everything back up. All right? So it's going to be effectively a two-step process. And there we go. All right? So what we see is the loud stuff is now not as loud relative to the quiet stuff, and then everything has been bumped up to the maximum. So now let's compare our starting and ending points. See how the volume stays pretty constant now? All right. So now I can go to the envelope tool and I can choose how I want this fade to work. And in this case, I actually want this to fade in. You know, whoop, that wasn't supposed to happen. Now here's another cool thing you can do with the envelope tool. See how, okay, technically this is as loud as it can get without overwhelming the track, but the part at the end, the part that I want to be really loud and really just get in the listener's ear, is not actually that loud. Notice how there's a second drag handle here? I can pull that up, and that will actually increase the volume a bit. All right, I can only do it so much. I could also just grab the amplify tool and amplify a chunk of this. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I don't even know what you guys are talking about, but I'm enjoying it anyway. Can you could you flip the sound so that it's really loud here? Could you flip it so that it would actually go the opposite way? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I mean, I could just change the way that I drag this. Is this what you mean?
Oh, I think she means actually do a 180.
Yeah, do it a 180.
So instead of the bomb coming towards
Start
you.
low. It's already loud in the beginning and you want it to go the opposite way. If you
Like this.
flip it.
Except that would reverse the whole waveform, so the sound itself would sound backwards.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, the short answer to your question is there is a reverse tool, but it's probably not what you want in this case. But you can have it fade in or fade out. If I wanted to, I mean, really, yes, if I wanted to, I could, for example, just grab this chunk and go to Effect Amplify, and it'll calculate the maximum this can be amplified. And then take this chunk and do Effect Amplify, and it'll calculate the amount that can be amplified. And this might sound horrible, let's see. And you hear that pop. When you go from really, when you have a sudden change in volume, but you know, that might just be my fault. Let's see if we, let's do something a little bit less ambitious.
When you remove the noise, you remove the noise from the sound when those volume levels were at a certain point. So when you raise the volume of a softer section, the noise will increase again. So the noise will return.
There's a couple things we can do here. So let's see how this sounds. So now it's a bit more consistent, but okay, I'm going to undo some of these, and let's make sure this sounds okay. Yep, okay. So let's get our fade in.
Can I just ask about the compressor?
Sure.
The checkbox that said make up the gain.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when that's not, when that doesn't?
When that doesn't happen, so you've got your waveform here. It's going to bring this part down lower, so it's going to be closer to this level, and then it's going to stay there. So you're going to end up with something that's all at about this level in the track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not like affecting each part relatively. It's just.
Well, actually, here, let me just demonstrate. I will go to Effect, Compressor, same settings as before, but I'm going to turn off the makeup gain bit. And see, it brings everything down to a consistent level, but it doesn't then amplify it back up to the top. All right? And I can get about the same effect if I then just ran the amplify tool.
On other applications, it's referred to as auto gain. You'll see that a lot on some of the other pieces of software. It's the same thing. It basically just, when you're compressing, you're going to, like that, you're losing volume, and it's just designed to bring the overall volume back up to where you were.
All right, so we're just about done. I'm going to get rid of this extra track. I'm going to turn this into a single mono track just for simplicity's sake. I'll drag this up here. And we'll drag this to here. I lost my fade somewhere in there, so I'm going to add this back in. We'll also fade in our marching. And I'm actually going to pop this down a bit. Particularly, by the way, if I was going to have dialogue, I would definitely pull the footsteps down a little bit. A common mistake that I see people make is they'll just drop footsteps into a scene where people are walking and talking at the same time, and the footsteps are when you get a footstep sample, right? You get one online or something like that. It's going to be loud because you want that full quality, right? Imagine walking and talking with someone. Are your footsteps ever the same volume as your voices? No. It's gonna sound weird if you just drop footfall noises into a scene. And I hear people do this all the time, and it's really distracting. And you would be amazed how much of a difference it makes in the immersion and the believability of a scene if you just pull the footsteps back a little bit. Yeah?
I find that the best way to do is put it at the regular volume, and then just before the vocals come in, drop the volume and sort of introduce the sound. And now that it's in their head, bring it down. It allows the brain to carry it. Just with the suggestion.
Yeah, and that's a very good. I would often, when we're doing dialogue, I'll like add a point here, and I'll have something that looks a little bit like this. And another thing, it's a little bit surprising how little the brain notices this. If dialogue comes in here, you're listening to the dialogue now. It's going to sound completely natural that these footsteps that faded in to get your attention now recede into the background.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's common practice with music as well and with ambient sounds. You want to establish the scenes taking place in an auto workshop or auto repair shop. You can start out with the pneumatic drills and stuff at a certain volume, and then they just drop under as soon as the dialogue comes in.
But especially if you want to do sound design and audio theater, that's a really good thing to practice with. A great way to learn good tricks is to give yourself a scene where the camera, so to speak, pans between like conversations at a party or something like that. Get a background track of party noise, people talking and that kind of stuff, and then practice crossfading between dialogue A, party noise comes up, party noise comes down, dialogue B, party noise comes up, and so forth. It's a really cool effect, and it's a really good skill to have, and you'll learn a lot by doing it. Okay, so we're just about at our goal here. Let's see what this sounds like when we put everything in order.